Welcome to Eventful Endeavors, secrets to crafting the perfect celebration. If you're planning an event and looking for useful tips from industry experts, you're in the right place. So get ready to take some notes and we'll dive right in. This is Eventful Endeavors.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Eventful Endeavors. We are here today with Rebecca Grant, who is a wedding planner and venue manager up in Snohomish in the Pacific Northwest. Thank you so much for being here today, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it. And I'm also a venue owner, just the manager.
Venue owner. Yeah, venue owner.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But the first thing I like to ask everybody is kind of how you got started in the wedding industry. You know, what's your kind of story? Where did you come from? How did you get into this world?
Yeah, my background, quite a few years ago. I'm 20 years in as a wedding planner at this point, but it started back in around 2003. I was looking for a career change at that point and really had a very strong interest in hospitality and business ownership. And so in talking with several people, this was right at the beginning of when wedding planning was actually a career. And so I started talking with quite a few different people and they're like, I think wedding planning might be your gig, your thing. And so I looked into it. And at the time it was either Hawaii, New York, or Florida within the US that offered actual degrees in hospitality and wedding planning. And so I was able to up and move to Hawaii at that time and ended up finding a place to stay and enrolled in University of Hawaii Travel Industry Management program and lived on the island for about 4.5 years.
Well, that's exciting. And then how long have you lived up in the Pacific Northwest? When did you go up there? Are you originally from there, or was that just a decision you made later?
Yeah, that was just a decision to go to school there. So I grew up here in the Pacific Northwest, moved to Hawaii to go to school for wedding planning. Life circumstances changed, moved back home, and then I launched my business here in Seattle. So it was good to be able to move back home. I had to reestablish myself, of course, because on the islands, I was working for an established wedding planner already. So I kind of was built in with her gigs, of course. And as I was coming back to Seattle, you know, I knew what I was doing, but nobody else knew what I was doing. And just kind of was able to get my foot in the door very, very uniquely. I specialize in Asian and Pacific Islander weddings because of my time in Hawaii. And so because of that, when I moved back home at the time, there was no planners that specialized in APPI weddings. And so I really could get my foot in the door of saying, like, I know customs, I know cultures. Yes, I know I'm as white as the snow, but I got it, you know, like I can handle all these different Asian customs and cultures that are thrown my way.
So you were doing a lot of that at first. Have you expanded since then? Now you do kind of a little bit of everything, and do you still do a lot of those cultural weddings?
Not as many as when I first started by any means, but it is still a good percentage of my weddings that I'm doing. It's about 30%, either full Asian or mixed. But yeah, I mean, I do anything, but that still definitely has a piece of my heart for sure, just because that's how I got my experience and my foot in the door here in Seattle. Yeah.
So here's a question I like to ask is, you know, if you coming from wedding planning and whatnot, so when you talk to newly engaged couples, you know, what's kind of the first piece of advice you kind of give people when they're just getting started?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different key pieces. Number one, you're always going to hear every wedding planner say is budget. Be very, very realistic with what you can afford. And it's fine if it's not a 6-figure wedding. Not everybody can afford that. And you can still have a lovely wedding for 20 grand, but I might just not be your planner. So it's really making sure. Number two is that we are a good fit mutually for each other. So not only are they coming with a realistic expectation of budget, but also knowing that I will work well with them and that they are going to be a good fit for me. You know, I'm working with these couples for a year to a year and a half. And that level of trust is imperative. If you don't trust me, don't hire me. And if you feel like I can't be with you, you know, with your aunties and uncles and grandparents and with your wedding party all day on start to finish, I'm not going to be the best fit for you. But I do tell my couples from the initial consultation, what I need from you is timely responses. I literally cannot do my job unless I get a response from my couples. It really stalls the process moving forward. and it makes for a much more stressful planning experience. So the faster that those items can be crossed off the to-do list, I will guide you through. I'll guide you through what's next and get you through it.
Yeah.
And yes, it'll be a lot of decisions, but you won't have nearly the amount of stress that your girlfriend, who just got engaged is like, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start and what to do on my own.
Yeah. And I've talked to a lot of people about budget. Do you usually come in like process wise? Do you find yourself where couples already kind of have a budget, or do you build it for them? Or do you have couples that already built their budget and you say, okay, this isn't going to work with what you want? Like, how does where do you usually come in the process?
90% of the time, couples will hire me with a date and a venue already booked. So I'm kind of either second on the totem pole. Sometimes they even have a photographer booked. So sometimes I'm second or third. So it is great when I'm at the top of the totem pole and I'm like, yes, I can build a totally realistic budget for you. But if they have come in with date and venue already set, then I go over their vendor needs with them. So I literally go through an entire list of, do you want or need a hair and makeup artist, a photographer, a florist, live musicians, what does that look like to you? What does your wedding day look like to you? Because it's different for everybody. And then from there, I put together a budget spreadsheet that is based off of their wants and desires and also on their guest count. And I put together a realistic budget for them within their venue setting of what they can expect to spend for their wedding day. So some people, are super heavily reliant on flowers and decor. So I'm going to bump that guy up a little bit more than I would for somebody who's like, I want the best killer photographer in the world. Get me that best person, so it's going to be different for each person.
Right. I love that you said that, because I've talked to a few people about this where I think some couples have this weird idea that if they hire a wedding planner that they don't get any creative control over their wedding. Which I love that you said you kind of give them like, what are your dreams? What do you want? Yep. I'm going to make that come true within this realistic budget. Because I found that a lot. Like some people are like, that's not how it works though, right? Like, I mean, the couple is still in control of their destiny, I guess, and you just kind of help facilitate it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In my 20 years, over 500, probably pushing almost 600 weddings at this point, I've, no joke, had 2 couples that have said, here's my credit card, you design it and you do everything. That's just not the reality.
Did you like that?
No, I didn't actually, because I didn't know.
You're like, I don't like this.
No, and I didn't know what flowers they were allergic to, and I didn't know what spices they liked on their meat, So I still had to figure out some decisions here and there. I'm like, I'm not comfortable creating your entire menu for you because that's very, very personal. But the ones, so the majority of my couples, yes, I'm going to get to know what their wishes are, what their top priorities are, and plan accordingly, so that starts, of course, with the initial plan of the budget, but then it also moves into design, and then it moves into vendor curation at that point as well. So all of those things should work in tandem with each other. And I give my couples ultimate veto power on, if you don't want to work with that vendor, no problem. So especially my full planning clients, it's very much of a collaboration on, okay, here's the top 3 that I think are going to be an excellent fit for you. And then I give them 3 options. Option 1, you love this person right out of the gate. You followed them on Instagram forever. You are totally down for hiring that person. No questions asked. Option 2 is you can't decide between A and B. Can we set up a consultation with both? Great. Let's see who you jive with and see who you click with. Option 3 is I hate everyone, start over. And that's totally fine. Like, you're not going to hurt my feelings, but I also have been doing this long enough that very rarely do I get to that option 3. But it's just, I always want couples to know that they are in the driver's seat, that they have ultimate veto power on decisions being made.
That's good. I like that. And it kind of goes along though. What's one of the biggest like mistakes you see couples make, like early, or something that they usually think is going to work, and then like you're like, no, this is not something that you should do? Like, is there anything that springs to mind as like a big mistake that like just putting it out there, like couples should maybe avoid thinking about doing this or doing this? Or
I know it's a very big East Coast thing, but doing toasts between courses of meals, I am not a fan. The timing gets completely thrown off. If you're trying to cater 150 person event and keep food warm and on time, breaking that up with somebody who could potentially go rogue on a toast that goes, oh, I know they told me I only had 3 minutes, but I'm going to take 15. Well, that sets back all of your service and
Everything.
your meal and everything. And so on the surface, to a guest, it might be okay, but internally, on the planner side and on the venue side and on the caterer side, everyone's freaking out. And then I'm also thinking timeline wise, I only have my photographer and videographer until, 10 p.m., let's say, right? So if the guest decides to mix things up and go a little bit off schedule, we are potentially losing couples coverage or costing them more money because that person has decided to go over. So I do like to group the toasts all together. Just keep it short, sweet, simple, 4 toasters max. Never open it up to somebody else unless the couples feel extremely strong about it, but I'm not a big proponent on that. But yeah, I just like to kind of keep things rolling and keep things concise.
Yeah. And speaking of like long toasts and whatnot, what's like the cringiest thing you've seen in a wedding or something that happened that springs to mind where you're like, oh, that was so uncomfortable. It could be a speech. It could be a dance gone wrong. It could be anything. Like what's something you saw where you were just like, oh no.
The number one that comes to mind is the mother-son dance at one of the weddings I did very early on in my career. The mother and son had choreographed a dance, but the bride and groom had not choreographed a dance. So it was like very just rock, rock, rock for the bride and groom. And then all of a sudden mom comes onto the scene and it's like this full on choreographed number. And no joke, they even did a lift and he was like parading her around the dance floor. And I'm like, this is so weird. Why in the world would you prioritize your mother over your bride? And I'm like, oh, it was weird. It was a very cringeworthy.
That's kind of strange.
For sure. Yeah, it was.
That is definitely kind of strange.
Yeah, and
it
still sticks out this many years later. I mean, that had to have been, pretty much right after I moved back from Hawaii. So it was either 2009 or 2010, and it still sticks out as a moment of like, why did you do
Interesting choice. Put a lot of work into that dance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely a little strange. I mean, similar to that though, what about on the flip side of that? Is there anything that sticks out to you as like the most unique thing you've ever seen or your favorite? I mean, you can just say your favorite wedding or favorite thing you ever saw, like that ring a bell?
Things that stick out for sure are my multicultural weddings that I get to do.
Sure.
Because I did not get exposed to that growing up, right? And so being able to attend and plan these weddings where it was like, we're bringing in this culture and this culture and this culture. And I'll never, ever, ever forget a wedding at the Seattle Aquarium. So it had this beautiful blue aqua background. And there was the dance floor directly in front of that big aquarium. And it was an Indian and a Jewish wedding combined. And so everyone was encouraged to wear Indian garb. And so the ladies were wearing saris and the gentlemen were wearing tunics. And it was just so bright and colorful. And they were dancing the hora. It was so cool. I was up on the upper patio level at the aquarium and just looking down and seeing all this color and all these amazing blending of customs and cultures coming together in one really, really cool moment.
I think that's really cool. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about that because I don't talk to too many people about other cultural weddings. That's something that we haven't really talked to many people about. So let's talk about it a little bit. Are these,
Sure.
I've done a few, the most I've done is maybe I did a couple Vietnamese weddings and they were really fun. A lot of people. Are a lot of these weddings that you're doing for these other cultures, are they big weddings? I know a lot of, especially Asian cultures tend to have very, very large weddings, 400 plus people. Do you find that that's a thing?
Leaning into the Indian side, yes, but more the weddings that I specialize in of the Southeast Asian, of Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Hawaiian, Samoan, Vietnamese, Thai, Korean, those tend to be much more on the more manageable, smaller side. So I would say 200 or under tends to be pretty average for those. But once you get into the Indian side, which is not my specialty, I've done a handful of them, but definitely not my go-to. They can get quite large, anywhere between 400 to 600 people.
Yeah, I remember the one wedding. I mean, the Vietnamese couple, they were amazing. They were so much fun. But I was talking to the groom. I was like, how many of these people do you know? And he's like, maybe 20. I don't even know half these people. I was
Yes.
like, that's so crazy. He's like, I'm pretty sure that guy just like works at the deli my dad goes
Yeah.
to. I'm like,
Yes.
oh.
Well, and it's
It was
very, very
amazing. I was like,
cultural,
this is crazy.
like
Yeah,
families want to
yeah,
invite families, want to invite families, want to invite families. And so it
right.
gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I would say probably my Filipino weddings out of all the cultures I
Yeah,
specialize in tend to be the largest. And so those can
right.
get quite high in numbers for sure.
What are some of like the biggest differences? Like obviously, like, doing weddings in the States, so we do a lot of Jewish weddings, so we know like the hora. Like,
Mhm.
what are some of the big like things that happen in those weddings that we don't do over here, like culturally, either at the ceremony
Yeah.
or the reception? Like, is there anything that you're like, oh, they do this and it's really, really fun or really exciting?
Yeah. So we've had, top two of out of those cultures are, well, Filipino, I would say top three actually, Chinese, Filipino, and Japanese. And so you have
Sure.
to be very aware of color palettes. So Chinese weddings tend to
Hmm.
lean more into the golds, reds, burgundies. They do not use white because that's a color of death actually in China. And so
Hmm.
it will be
Interesting.
as couples get more and more westernized, that that tradition is going away more and more. So you will
Does
sometimes
the
see a
bride does
bride.
the bride wear white? I'm
That's
sorry
what
to
I was
interrupt.
going to
Does the
say.
bride wear white?
Yeah.
No, the bride. Okay.
Yeah. So as they get more and more westernized, the bride will wear white. However, quite
Okay.
often she'll change into a red tea ceremony dress, right? So you're still giving a nod to that culture, but it's not as all in as if you were to have a full Chinese wedding.
Gotcha.
Certainly Chinese lion dancers I've brought in, having 8 courses because 8 is an auspicious number in Chinese culture. And then you switch to Japanese culture where white is a sign of purity. And it's, something that is very much used within those
Right.
weddings. I've brought in Japanese taiko drummers before, which was amazing. And then certainly with the Japanese food, I'm a big fan. So I'm like, yes, please.
Oh, me too. Yeah. Yeah.
And then Filipino weddings are just fun. They're amazing. Like
Right.
I often say if I believed in reincarnation, I would want to be reincarnated as a Filipino. I love them. Their families are incredible. I've never met a
Right.
pretentious or snobby or rude Filipino person. They are just so great. And of course, their food is amazing as well. But then with that,
Yeah.
their ceremony is very different. So they tend to go into the Catholic Church quite often. And gentlemen will wear a traditional barong, which is made of pineapple fiber. So it's a really lightweight shirt and it has a design through it so they can get quite elaborate. And then they will also incorporate sponsors. So people that have helped pay for the wedding, quite often these are aunts, uncles, godparents. And there'll be a sponsor of coins, veil, cord, Bible, and they will actually walk down the aisle with them. So my Filipino processionals are the
That's
longest
cool.
processional of any culture. Quite often they can get up to about 40 people.
Well, I feel like, with a lot of those, because like I know a lot of the, those cultures do have like many courses for their food and whatnot. I feel like when you go from one of those to then coming to the Western weddings, these got to be easy comparatively.
Yes,
I feel like they got to be
it
easy,
really
like
is.
little buffet and then let's dance, right? I mean,
Yep, exactly.
compared to that, yeah,
Yeah.
you're like, this
Food
is
is a
way
very, very
easier to
big
do
deal.
these kind of,
Yep, absolutely.
yeah, pretty basic over here in the States,
Yep.
keeping it simple. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's change it a little bit. I want to talk to you a little bit about the venue. So you bought
Sure.
a venue, you own this venue. So what happened? Like what inspired this? And talk to me about the venue.
Yeah. So pretty much ever since I started off as a wedding planner, I knew venue ownership was going to be my what's next, right? That was always my next step.
Okay.
So met my husband, got married in 2010, and carried on through wedding planning, and he knew that owning a venue was always my what's next. And so he got kind of drug along for the ride. He's in IT, so this was not his shtick at all. But with that, we actively started looking for properties in 2017. And so we looked everywhere from the Skagit Valley all the way down to Tacoma and everywhere in between. And so with that, I started posting on Instagram, just going Instagram live saying, hey, I'm out at this property in Granite Falls today. What do you guys think about this property? This is where I think I would do the ceremony. This is about how many people I think it could hold, blah, 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 right? So as I started doing that, fast forward to 2019, and I was actually working a wedding and my phone started blowing up. And people were like, oh my gosh, Twin Willow Gardens just came up for sale. You have to buy this venue. Oh my gosh. Oh, so
Yeah.
the really crazy miracle, ironic, however you want to phrase it, part was that my assistant for that day was the daughter-in-law of the second owners of this property. And so she was texting the current owners who are looking to sell and saying, what are you asking? What are you looking for in a buyer? All the stuff. Because they didn't put it on MLS. It was just a private word of mouth for sale. And so she was giving this information to me in real time of like, this is how much they're asking.
Yeah.
This is what they're looking for, So I was like, okay. So that was on a Friday. And then fast forward to Sunday, we had a set up meeting with the current owners of the property. And we officially made an offer Tuesday morning. So it all happened very quickly.
It was meant to be.
It was meant to be. And then the even more amazing part was because of my planning career, I had already done weddings at this property. I'd already been to this home that I'm sitting in because of the second owner's daughter-in-law. And then when we hosted our friends and family open house, we invited our neighbors because of course we wanted to get to know them. And she is my primary care physician, and he went to the same college as my husband. So, I mean, we totally hit it off with them. And so it very, very much was meant to be. The downside was the following year was COVID. So it was not a super awesome time. Yeah. Right. It was a very, very tough first couple of years to get through, for sure.
Sure. Yeah, because you had this new spot and you couldn't really do any weddings. I mean, is it an outdoor venue, or is it a little bit combination of both kind of thing?
Yeah, we're fully outdoor. We do have one small outbuilding, but it just houses the restrooms, and there is a little bit of space in there. A lot of couples will do like photo booth, ice cream bar, espresso bar, kind of in that little outbuilding, but it's certainly not large enough to accommodate indoor spacing. But we do provide on-site tents. Mm-hmm.
So now that we're kind of on the, other side of this thing, how's it going? I mean, are you guys loving it? Or are you having a great time doing it? You've always wanted to do it. So how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I'm feeling actually really good. We recovered very nicely. We're fully booked for this year. We're about 50% booked for next year.
Awesome.
And so it's a really good position to be in. And other things that I really learned about the venue ownership side, I could not do this without my husband. And that was a big wake up call to me of like, wow, I'm really good at the sales side and of the knowing how to market a venue and what updates to make in order to make it more appealing to couples. However, the maintenance side was really, really eye-opening to me of just all the tiny little things that he does throughout the week are pretty incredible. And if I was just on my own having to pay for all of that for a handyman to come in and do, your overhead would be even more than it already is with the venue. So that was very much an eye-opener to me. And I'm really thankful that he is quite handy. So he's able to get all that stuff done. Yeah.
Good. You got a handy husband who's fixing all the stuff. I love it.
Absolutely.
That's great though. So do you still plan at the same time? Do you only plan weddings at this venue now? I mean, what's this combination world look like now?
Yeah. So that was actually one of my biggest fears in taking over the venue was people thinking that I'm done planning. I'm not done planning. That's actually my primary source of income is still planning. Okay. So I do about 20 to 25 weddings off-site every year. And so I tend to get booked because 20 years in, I am at a higher price point than a lot of other planners. And so I tend to be booked at the venues that kind of command six-figure weddings. And so I do work a lot in Seattle, a lot in Woodinville. There are a handful of couples that will hire me to plan their weddings here at my venue. And that's not very many though. Out of the 47 weddings, I'm doing 2 this year. So they're not required to use me by any means. They are required to have a planner, but it does not have to be me. And they are required, if they are interested in using me, to actually do a formal interview. It's not, hey, I'm giving you a tour. Oh, can we hire you as a planner? You don't know anything about my planning services. So it does have to go through that formal process. So I am still actively wedding planner, still actively own the venue. And then my husband still actively has a full-time Monday through Friday 9 to 5 job. So we stay very, very busy between the two of us. Yeah.
That's exciting though.
Yes, it is.
If it's what you've wanted and it works out, that's great. And I like that too. So I was going to ask you how many weddings you kind of manage per year. So 25 is kind of your rates, which what on average is like 2 a month or something like that, right?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if they perfectly fell January through December, amazing, but that never happens, of course.
Yeah,
So
of course. They're all half of them are in September. It's like, oh no.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So my season right now at 21 weddings is mid-May through the last week of September. And then I have
Okay.
a bit of a gap until November, and I have one in November.
Most of them
So
are they're all in that May. Well, I guess, yeah.
all in that time frame. Yeah,
That's the busy season up there. Yeah.
absolutely.
It's,
And of course, that's when the venue's rocking and rolling too. Since we are an outdoor venue, we operate mid-May through the last weekend of September. So
right.
it's all systems go when that hits.
Great. So since I imagine you're, if you're out planning a wedding on a Saturday somewhere else or on site for that wedding at the venue, do you have like an in-house manager that just kind of handles everything there?
We do, yeah. So in the morning, we
Cool.
have high school gals that help us with setting up tables, chairs, doing a general
Great.
once through of cleanup, and then also making sure that the tiny homes where we have couples get ready in, that those are cleaned, stocked, ready to go for the day. And then they stay through the start of the ceremony, and then it transitions to our afternoon to evening person, who is a little bit older. She's more our age,
Sure.
and she operates just kind of keeping an eye on everything and making sure, that the bathrooms are stocked. And,
Right.
at the end of the night, if the getaway car comes up, she takes down the rope, to let them onto the property. So little things like that. She's not there to monitor or watch anybody like a hawk. It's just there to be a person in case something goes wrong with the venue.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
Yep.
sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we're about at time here, but before we leave, I do want to ask this. I want to go completely out of the blue and off topic. So talk to me about these animals you have. Chickens, bats, bees. What's going on? You got like a whole farm up there?
We
What's the
do.
story?
We've got a little menagerie. We're out on 6 acres up here in Snohomish, and
Okay.
we do have 10 chickens that lay eggs for us. So we do sell our eggs. And then we've
Nice.
got two golden retriever dogs. So with that, we do try and keep our property as natural as possible because we are eating
Sure.
the eggs that our chickens produce, right? So down at the venue, we have 2 bat boxes, and so that takes
Nice.
care of natural mosquito repellent. And so we don't have to spray or chemicalize our property as much as some of the other venues that choose to go that
Yep.
route. And no issue, but that's just what we've chosen to do. And then we also have mason bee houses. So those that are not familiar with mason bees, they're actually more beneficial than honeybees. They just don't produce honey. So they are actually better pollinators than honeybees are, and they're solitary bees. So they actually put themselves in little cocoons. And then come this time of year, we take their cocoons out of our refrigerator where they've been stored all winter, and we let them go. So they chew themselves out of their cocoons, and then off they go, and they
Wow.
pollinate all of the orchards and the fields nearby. Yeah. So
That's a fun little hobby. I like that.
yeah. And we are a garden venue, and so it's
Right.
incredibly beneficial for our flower beds and just cross-pollinating. Our neighbors have a
Yeah.
little mini orchard with fruit trees, and they said that the first year we moved in was the best harvest they've ever had. So look into
Oh, that's
mason bees.
great.
It's an easy hobby. They're fun to do, but yeah, between our bats and our mason bees, and then our
Right.
house has solar panels, so we try and keep it pretty natural out here. Yeah.
My wife would love this conversation because she's been telling me, she's like, I want to get a bat hotel and I want to get a bee. Yeah, she wants to do all that
Yes.
in our place too. And I was like, I don't know if I want bats. And she's like, but you hate the mosquitoes. I was like, I do hate the
Yep.
mosquitoes. So
Yeah.
I was like, then,
No
yeah,
joke.
maybe
I
we'll do
was
it.
sitting out in my hot tub one night, and I'm like, there's a mosquito, where's the bat? And no sooner did I
You
say
saw
that,
it?
a bat swooped in and was like, I got you. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's
So
great. That's great.
we use bat B&B for our bat boxes, and then we do sell back and harvest our bees through Crown Bees out of Woodinville if anyone's looking for resources.
Great. Awesome. Well, listen, I that's pretty much it for me. I mean, we'll obviously link to all your socials and all that stuff for the venue and for your wedding planning and all the fun stuff that we can do once this gets put out there. But in the meantime, is there anything else you kind of want to mention? Anything else we missed? Anything else that you're really passionate about or Anything? Any fun anecdote? I don't know. Anything before we call it quits?
My saving grace is I still keep my hobbies outside of being really busy. So anytime anybody wants to talk to me about ice skating or gardening or dogs, I am your gal. So come find me.
Ice skating. Wow. I didn't know. For ice skating's a big thing. You're a big ice skater. Well, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, talking to us today. I appreciate it. We'll link to all your stuff so people know where to find you. And best of luck in all your endeavors. And congratulations on owning the venue. That's awesome. So
thank you.
You have a great rest of your day. All right.
You as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Eventful Endeavors, Secrets to Crafting the Perfect Celebration. We hope to have left you with some actionable ideas for your own event. If you like the show, please subscribe and definitely leave us a review. We read every comment. So until next time, happy planning and see you soon on Eventful Endeavors.